Welcome to Better Futures.
If life gets so many bad Yelp reviews, is it our digital lives that put us in this demoralized state of inertia?
I guess I have two answers. So, one is to me, that seems true and worth thinking about. There are many reasons why we might enjoy our lives less than we used to because of spending more time on digital media. I mean, there's so many reasons. I hate it. I really resonated in a way with one of your posts recently where you said that you were jealous of people who died in the 90s. And
Thank you very much.
yeah, to me, I have that thought too. I don't wish that I died in the 90s, but I kind of wish that I was born earlier and maybe finished my life naturally in the 90s. Because to me, the whole world has become really boring as a result of the internet. I think things have become really homogenized. One of my favorite things is taking road trips. It's one of my main passions. I do it every summer. And I like to drive from here to one of the coasts every summer if I can. And I've done it most of my life. And in the past, I mean, I only started doing it in the late 90s because I'm only 40 now. And I think my first solo road trip was 1999. But even back then, when I would go to another city, I would get a sense for what that city is like. There would be stores that you only find in that city, more independent stores, and even chains where you only find it in that city. And you could see that just from the interstate driving past. Even billboards, which I hated at the time and hate now. Billboards were more interesting back then because they were advertising something of character, at least from that city. Even that small, impoverished joy was a step up from what we have now, because when I go to a city now, I'm like, what's the city like? Oh, it's like all the other cities. It's got the same stores, but it's not just about stores. It's about people. What are the people here like? Well, they're all on their phones, like the people in all the other cities. And what does it mean to be on your phone? Well, it means that you're connecting and exploring with things that are not tied to your locale. So I get less of a sense now that when I go to a city, I'm talking to what people are like in that city. Now I'm talking to people who are like whatever their echo chambers are like.
That's interesting because we have this collective sense that we aren't connecting to the meaning of life, whatever that might be.
Yes.
The collective sense of not connecting to that, not just on the collective unconscious level, but we have also the more material transnational homogenization of what we can see and experience.
Yeah.
Variation seems to be shrinking.
The thing that is really pertinent, I think, is how do we recover from that? How do we move past it and start improving things? And this is what is really tricky, and most of the world, as far as I've seen, hasn't caught on to yet, is that the way to address these kind of problems is not to use an excessive amount of shame about them. A certain amount of shame is called for because we're saying it goes against our values to some extent, the way we're acting. But what we're kind of used to doing in our culture, and I think this is pretty common across the world, is when we see something as a problem, we address it with excessive shame. And that excessive shame usually results in somebody getting motivated for a while to change, and now they have the high expectations. And they say, oh, I'm not going to use my phone anymore. I'm only going to shop at independent stores, and kind of reach for the world we wish existed. But maybe that's not a doable goal at the moment. And so if we keep reaching for that and shaming ourselves for not attaining it, then we'll just burn out and we'll have the opposite extreme, which is to say, it doesn't matter. It's not worth working on this problem at all because I can't solve it completely and perfectly right now. So what I think is that it's worthwhile being sad, feeling our anxieties and our depressions about how the world has turned out, and then taking a slow and forgiving and imperfect and moderate approach to improving it. Taking doable, measurable steps toward something better is way more conducive to emotional peace and the world actually improving than an all or nothing approach.
Thank you so much for saying that about improving the world. I hadn't mentioned this before, but this podcast is called Better Futures, and that's my hope too. With that in mind, I'm kind of curious. How do you think we can help the world better address problems so that we can improve it?
Sure. Well, I mean, let me give due appreciation to just how complex a question that is. But I can start to maybe throw out some helpful ideas. Starting to demystify anxiety and depression and feelings in general is a good start. So, on the individual level, one of the major ways that an emotional problem plays out is that a person spends more effort than is necessary trying to change or control or eliminate their feelings, and less effort than is necessary on actually working on the problems in their life that the feelings are about. So it's really standard mainstream psychological paradigm that feelings are not connected to meaning. And that's how you get clients showing up to a counselor or a coach or whatever saying, man, this panic attack just came out of the blue. I don't know what it's about. Or, why should I be depressed? I've got a nice house. I've got a great family or whatever. And we're so used to thinking of feelings as these physiological problems that are disconnected from their meaning. I used to think about things more in those terms, and it has helped me to take a second look if I don't actually know why I might be feeling negatively for some reason, to actually take a look, say, can I think of any reasons that make simple sense why I might feel that way? And they're just in the habit of saying, no, these feelings don't make sense. What's normal is to not feel them. What's normal is to not be ever depressed or not ever be anxious. So I think if we start making simple sense of all negative emotions and all emotions in general, just if you have an emotion, you are being adaptive. You're adapting to life. Your emotions are telling you, first of all, what is most meaningful to you. And second of all, helping you assess what's working and what isn't in your life. And so what it looks like is you'll have clients that say, first I need to get over my depression, and then I'm going to start working on my life. And now you're kind of caught in a vicious cycle, because the reason you're depressed is because of the things that are meaningful to you in your life. And so if you work on those things, you'll feel good about the fact that those things are being worked on. But if you say, I'm going to wait until I feel good in order to work on what I care about, well, then you never have the opportunity to improve, to recover.
It makes me think about, just going back to our collective obsession with devices, smartphones, etc. How is it keeping us trapped in a vicious cycle? Perhaps it's overexposure to the content that we then shame ourselves for not living up to.
I think that's definitely going on. The cultural beliefs are what they are. And the more time you spend in echo chambers where there's not a lot of complexity or depth to the conversations, and the more time you spend being advertised to, and really these companies trying their hardest to take up as much of our attention as they can, the more time we spend in that, the more we're exposed to the cultural beliefs of the more is better and it's normal to be happy all the time and stuff like that. And then also I think there's a mindless quality to it where, for whatever reason, we get really absorbed in scrolling through things. For me, it almost feels like a gambling addiction. When I'm on Facebook, it's like, I want to be doing it. I want to connect with my friends who aren't in the same city or maybe are in the same city. I would like to know what's going on in people's lives. And even the content is usually pretty good. I'm friends with a lot of smart and caring people. And sometimes the articles that they're posting are more helpful than what I read on the news or whatever. But still, I find myself scrolling and scrolling and scrolling with this feeling like just one more. And I don't feel very good when I do that, but I'm in a mindless state where I'm really not aware that I'm being sucked in until the pain gets so great that I want to shut it off, That
reminds me of something you said earlier, that feelings are how you find what's meaningful in life.
Yeah.
So your active awareness at that time, like you were willing to feel negative emotions when you noticed them.
Well, that's something that really helped me to learn and to practice. I was in the habit of only finding positive feelings meaningful. And I thought that what needed to happen was for me to somehow replace my negative feelings with positive ones, or get rid of the negative feelings. And then I was in a vicious cycle where I never got to find the rewards of listening to negative emotions because I invalidated all of them. And when I got to see that what helps is to start validating and normalizing the negative emotions and to think about what they're about. This kind of really echoes what I was saying earlier too about being willing to listen to criticism of somebody else. It's kind of like being willing to listen to criticism of yourself too. When I'm depressed, now I'm more likely to automatically know why I'm depressed. But if I don't automatically know, I can say, okay, what's not working here? Why do I feel trapped? Or why do I feel bored? What needs need do I have that isn't getting met here? And then the feeling lasts as long as it needs to. I don't see it as something that I really want to go away. I want it to be there, continually giving me helpful information as to what's not working in my life. And I think that's a really different paradigm. I mean, it's very different from the paradigm that I was enculturated into.